Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Aberystwyth Town in Conversation With. Tonight my guest is Gavin Cadwallader, who's coming to us live all the way from Jersey. So Gav, how's things? How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thanks, Paul. Yeah, not too bad at all. Obviously, as you just said, obviously living in Jersey now, things are a little bit different, I guess, over here to what it's like in the UK. Things are starting to get back to a little bit more normality now, I guess. Things are starting to open up, but yeah, but we've been in lockdown, obviously, over the last 6 months or 6 weeks or so, especially. And yeah, it's nice to start finally getting a little bit of normality back, I guess.
What are the restrictions in Jersey at the moment, and what are you and not allowed to do at the moment?
So at the moment we're quite lucky. We're allowed to go out and about now. The hospitality is just open, so I think there's a lot of people on the island booking restaurants and getting to the pubs and stuff now. But yeah, so it's a little bit different now. Obviously, there's still restrictions in terms of the amount of people that you can sort of socialise with and group things and stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice to actually be able, if you can, to be able to actually look forward to doing something now. Obviously, staycations on the island now, so the hotels are going to be opening back up, or they have opened back up. So yeah, it's starting, as I said, starting to get to a little bit of normality, and obviously the vaccines have been pushed through now, which is great as well, which I know that obviously they're doing in the UK. So yeah, we'll fingers crossed in the next few months we'll see a big change. But obviously it's been a real testing time for everyone, hasn't it, in terms of sort of everything to do with lockdown. And yeah, it's been a sort of a difficult year, I guess, hasn't it, for everyone? But
yeah, definitely.
Fingers crossed.
Definitely. So everyone at the club will remember you for living in Shrewsbury and travelling across to Aber from Shrewsbury. So how long have you been in Jersey, and what made you move out there?
So I've been here now for well, nearly a year and a half, I guess. Moved over, came over as advertising sales manager for the Jersey Evening Post. Obviously I was working at the Shropshire Star for 12 years, believe it or not. So I was there for 12 years, worked my way up sort of through the ranks there, and then was given an opportunity to come over here. And obviously it was a big decision at the time, because we had to think about sort of me and my wife moving over here, sort of how it was going to impact from that point of view. Obviously missing the family, missing friends, impact on a little one as well, because we've got a 2-year-old, so how it's going to impact on her. But I think we made a decision to sort of go for it, and I think in a strange sort of way it's probably been the right decision. Although things from a football point of view, I do miss the football and being involved with obviously the coaching and things like that. But I think there's a lot of things that have happened at my old work where I maybe wouldn't have even had a job right now, with the making redundancies and things like that. And I've been quite lucky over here, and really fortunate, I guess, that we've not really had to furlough anyone over here, and everyone's been able to work from home. So yeah, I suppose we've been quite fortunate like that.
And I know we'll probably come on to talk about this right at the end of the interview, but are you still involved in football at the moment? Are you coaching or playing at all?
Not as much as I'd like. I've actually got involved with a team called Roselle Rovers over here, and it's a nice little club, great bunch of lads. They want me to play, which obviously I retired a couple of years ago. Yeah. And I retired because of picking up niggly injuries and whatever, and I've played a couple of games and seem to just pick up the same old niggly injuries. So it's been really frustrating, and every time I start to be sort of getting anywhere near fit, something will happen. But I've done a couple of sessions coaching wise as well, but not as much as I'd like, and it's something, I guess, going forward that I'd like to get into. But I suppose my focus the last year and a half, particularly with lockdown as well, has been on my job and making sure that obviously I'm still fairly new to the role, just making sure that I give that 110% and do as well as I can in that role.
Yeah, and the football can wait until everything's back to normal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I mean, there's good opportunity. As so there's lots of clubs over here which I didn't even realise, and then they've got the Jersey team as well, which they've done really well over the last couple of years, albeit they've had a null and void season again this year, but I think they're unbeaten now in the last 2 seasons. They've not lost a game. Wow. So yeah, they're doing really well. So it'd be nice to sort of when that back up and running to maybe go and watch them play a little bit as well.
Okay, well that's the present, and now I'm going to take you right back to the start and your first involvement in football. So how did you first get interested in football, and what teams did you follow when you were young?
I think I was always interested really from a very young age, just because my dad was big on football and big on sport in general. I suppose my first involvement, or first memory, is playing for my Cubs team. And I just remember not wanting to play. I was too nervous, and being on the side, and my dad saying, "Go on, you need to get involved," and whatever. And anyway, got put on, and I think I scored within sort of 5 minutes of being on the pitch, and really enjoyed it, and then sort of went from there. And then got involved with a team called Meal Brace, and sort of played for them for well, probably not even a year. I guess I played for my first game. I always remember it was against Monkmoor Comets, and we drew 4-4. But I was lucky enough to have a scout there called Charlie Walker. You probably heard of him. Yeah. And he was there, and he came over and asked if I'd like to go on trial at Aston Villa. So wow. Ended up my dad taking me to Bodymoor Heath sort of every week, and having a trial with them. Got offered to sign, which was a great opportunity, but it was just at a time where obviously I was really young, and sort of the travel from my dad's point of view as well, having to finish work early on a Monday and Thursday, and then sort of get me there on a weekend as well, probably a bit too much. And so Charlie Walker was actually leaving Villa at the time to go to Shrewsbury, so he got me involved with Shrewsbury instead, and sort of ended up signing, I think, at the age of 11.
Fantastic. So this is where I need to be careful, because I could talk about Shrewsbury Town all night. So we need to move on to Aberystwyth Town at some point. But just talk me through your time with the Shrewsbury Town youth team then, and coming through the ranks there, up until the point where you were sort of 17, 18, and looking at getting involved with the reserves and first team.
Yeah, so as I said, I signed at 11, went all the way through the School of Excellence, got to obviously 16 where they make the decisions, and I was probably really lucky that year when I was 15 or so. I had a coach called Nigel Vaughan that took over that under-16s team, and he probably had him and Jamie Robinson and a guy called Ken Roberts, who sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago. They had a big influence on me, really. I remember sort of up till the under-16s, I was sort of playing on the left wing and left back or whatever it was, and not really doing anything. And anyway, I always remember a conversation that Nigel and Ken had with me in terms of where do I want to play, and I sort of said that I wanted to play centre midfield, and ended up sort of doing pretty well that season, and was lucky enough to get a scholarship. I was only really small at the time as well. I mean, obviously I'm 6'3", 6'4" now, but I was really small for my age, and was a really late developer. But they saw enough in me, I guess, to give me a scholarship, which obviously I was really chuffed with. And then that first year, I guess, as a scholar, again, it was a real learning curve, moving to Walford at the time, and having to deal with being away from home. And as I said, I was 16, but I was a really young 16, and probably found that first year really difficult. But it was, as I said, it was a real learning curve, and I think really helped me. It was set me up for life, really, I guess, not just for football, but life in general. And as I said, sort of after that, I was playing centre midfield, but as I got bigger and stronger, I was moved sort of back to centre half, and it sort of got to the stage where, again, my second year, Jimmy Quinn was involved with the first team, and the second year is really you needed to be involved with the reserves if you felt like you were going to go on and push on. and I was involved with the reserves, but not too much. You'd play the odd game, be on the bench, play the odd game again, but wasn't involved too much, and probably got to the stage where I probably felt that nothing was going to happen for me. And then Gary Peters obviously came in. Jimmy Quinn left and Gary Peters came in, and I suppose how football changes so quickly, I guess, and opinions of different players. I always remember him coming to watch our first youth team game, and he was really good like that. He would come and watch a lot of the youth team games, and took a big interest in that. And I always remember Nigel Vaughan saying that he was very direct, Gary Peters, in terms of like wanted the ball in the corner, he wanted leaders, etc. And I think the first 2 balls that I got on that day, I played one diagonal ball, and then I played one which sort of went down the line to a lad. And I think that after that game, I was involved with every reserve game up to the end of that season, which, as I said, football changes so quickly, doesn't it? And one minute you sort of not in favour, and then you have a new manager that comes in, and then you sort of are in favour. And as I said, I suppose I did pretty well to be in favour with him up till the end of the season, and was lucky enough to get to sign a full first team contract, which obviously is what you aspire to do, isn't it? As a YT, as a young lad, that's what I dreamed of doing. And yeah, so went on from there. Obviously, I was there first year. I think as a first year pro, you set targets in terms of where you want to be and what you want to do. And I felt that first year I sort of was sort of ahead of myself for the first few months, especially. I'd sort of said that I want to be around the squad to start off with, and then be pushing to be on the bench, and then be pushing to maybe come on, and then towards the end I want to hopefully be starting. And I think that, as I said, the first part of that I sort of did. I was on the bench about 20 times, I think, that season, which I was really happy with. Only got on a couple of times, but I think I didn't start a game, which I would probably say, if I'm honest, I was probably a little bit unlucky not to start, because I felt that there was a couple of games where I'd done really well I felt that I'd done really well in the reserves, and the manager had said that I'd done really well. And I think I was pushing. I always remember a game against Oxford where I felt like I was pushing to start. Anyway, I didn't start. I didn't play that game, and we ended up winning the game 3-0. And so obviously that you sort of back at square, well, not back at square one, but that you just feel that could have been an opportunity where if I played and won 3-0, then you could have gone on. But yeah, it was one of them. Obviously didn't start, and I think towards the end of the season, I was still playing reserve, still being in and around the squad, and the manager sort of said to me that he's going to give me a second year, which I was really happy with. But he wanted me to sort of get in the gym and bulk up. And I remember spending a lot of time in the gym that summer trying to bulk up and trying to do the right things, trying to go back really fit. And it sort of got to pre-season, and I did feel really fit. I still hadn't bulked up as much as I'd done in the gym. I think it was just maybe my development at the time. As I said, I was a sort of a late developer, I guess, and just couldn't, whatever I tried, just couldn't bulk up. But I had a really sort of poor start to the pre-season. Didn't play very well in a couple of games. Played against Telford in the Senior Cup, which we won on penalties, which I did okay in, but wasn't amazing or didn't really stand out for anything. So, and then I had a couple of games in the reserves at the start of the season where, again, just didn't do myself justice at all, didn't play very well. And I think after that, we'd sort of, obviously I think the manager maybe had a change of opinion, which obviously you can do. And that was that, I guess. I think that looking back, I mean, I'd asked to go on loan a couple of times. I know that Telford at the time were interested. I think Bernard McNally was manager there at the time, and they'd inquired.
Just after they reformed, wasn't it?
Pardon?
That was
That's
just
right.
after they
Yeah,
reformed.
that's it. Yeah. So they'd inquired. I think Vauxhall Motors were interested in taking me on loan as well, and I just wanted to get out and play. I knew that I wasn't being sort of around the first team at the time, and sort of spoke to the manager a couple of times and said, can I go out and just get some experience and play? But he said no, and I still don't know really to this day why he said no when I wasn't involved. He could have let me go out and maybe gain that experience. But I got to January and just felt like I needed to make a decision in terms of for myself, really. I wasn't enjoying going into training and just training, and then reserve games, obviously you enjoy, but you want to be playing competitive football, and obviously I wasn't getting that. So I wasn't really developing as much as I would have liked, and so I made the decision, or went in to see the manager and asked if I could leave. And again, he wasn't overly fussed about me leaving. He didn't want me to leave. He said to stay and stick it out and whatever. But I sort of had it in my head by then that that I wanted to leave and move on. And I think sort of looking back, you don't regret things, but I think that because sort of as you get older, you do realise how quickly football changes and how you can have an opinion on one thing one week, and then the next week you might have a completely different opinion because someone might have done really well with something. I think that maybe I was a bit young, a bit naive, as I said, wanted to get out and play, but maybe looking back, I should have stuck it out till the end of the season just to see what happens. And if it didn't, nothing came of it, then fair enough. But at least I would have known, I guess. I think sometimes you look back and think, because you look at players now and they could be out of favour, or they've got injured, and they're out of favour, but then someone might get injured and then they have to play because there's no one in that position, and then they do really well, and then all of a sudden they're in favour. And I think you look back and you think, well, maybe that could have happened to you. You weren't in favour, but someone could have got injured and you could have had to play and whatever. But you can't think like that. Obviously, I made a decision, and from that, obviously, your dad got in touch and ended up with Aberystwyth, which, I mean, I said I had a really good time at Aber and signing for them. So it was, I suppose, when I look back, it was a decision. It was a hard decision, but I don't regret it because of the good time I had at Aber.
Well, before we go on to talk about Aber, I just want to touch on a couple of things with your time at Shrewsbury, if that's all right. Thanks very much for talking us through that, by the way.
No.
First of all, your debut came away to Carlisle United, if I'm not mistaken. So just talk us through that night and what it was like making your Football League debut.
Yeah, I think obviously I think my two games that I came on were probably the furthest away from Shrewsbury I could have been, to be honest. So both games, my family unfortunately weren't there, but it was obviously a really proud moment. I think I probably owe a lot to Ben Hurd because he got sent off in that game, which meant that I came on. But yeah, it was sort of 15-20 minutes at the end, and I think it was pretty steady in terms of what I did. But as I said, it was a really proud moment. It's something obviously that even though you look back now, and I know it was only a couple of appearances that I made, but sort of you can look back and say, well, at least I've made sort of a couple of appearances in the Football League. And obviously I would have wanted to make more, and I wanted to obviously push on from that and obviously start a few games as well, which didn't quite happen. But as I said, a really proud moment and something that I'll always have. And
during your time at Shrewsbury, there was two players that I remember from that era in particular who have gone on to have absolutely unbelievable careers, and that's obviously Joe Hart and Dave Edwards. Could you tell, training with them at a young age, that they were going to go on and have such good careers? Was there anything that stood out about them? And what are your thoughts on how those two have progressed throughout their career? Yeah, I mean, as you say, they've both done unbelievably well, haven't they? I think that when you look at them, though, I think when you look at even at a young age, 14, 15, even before that, probably,
Joe was playing a year above himself at times, 2 or 3 years above himself when I think he was 15 and on the bench for the first team. So you could see that he was obviously different class in terms of where he was going to go, and you could see there was something special about him. And the same with Dave, really. I think that Dave was obviously playing a year or two above himself at times as well. He was in the youth team in that first year, where I remember sort of going in as a young 16, but he had no fear whatsoever. And again, technically very good. His work rate, the runs that he used to make, he's made a sort of a living out of that, hasn't he? Playing for Wolves and for Shrewsbury in terms of late runs into the box and things like that. And you can, as I said, you could really see that both of them were going to go on and do really well for themselves. I think possibly they've outdone themselves in terms of what maybe they thought they would do. Particularly with Joe, obviously, his career has been incredible, really, winning the league, winning the FA Cup, been involved with England, been involved in Champions League games. He's done it all, really. So now they've done unbelievably well.
Yeah, so from training and playing with Joe Hart, Dave Edwards, and a few other established professionals in that Shrewsbury side. Andy Cook, Stuart Drummond, the ones that stand out to me. Ben Davis, what a fantastic player he was. You came on to another brilliant squad at Park Avenue. So who do you remember from your first few training sessions at Aberystwyth? Who stood out?
I think obviously the training at Aber was unreal, really, how competitive and the intensity. I just remember going in and how hard people worked. The five-a-sides, said how competitive the five-a-sides were.
They've been mentioned a few times.
Little 3G, unbelievable. There's probably a couple of fights down there, I think, as well, just from how competitive. But all the local lads, as you've mentioned there, Freddie, Sean, Baz, Sherbs. Then you remember sort of Robbo and Christian and players like that just sort of some of the lads that have been there and done it as well, and sort of knew what needed to be done. I think that, as I said, what stood out for me was just how intense the training sessions were, and you couldn't get away with anything. If you weren't putting it in, you would have someone telling you. And I think that was why possibly we did so well as a team, really, because that team spirit. I always remember my first game, which I was on the bench. It was against TNS and didn't play, and we drew 0-0. But just watching the team and the work rate that went into from every single one of the lads, and coming in at the end, and how they were all sort of buzzing to get a point against the TNS team was brilliant. And I think, as I said, it set us set a really good example for anyone coming into the team.
And when you first came in, you started playing mainly in centre midfield, if I remember correctly. At that time, was that your preferred position, as you said? That's what you preferred in your youth team days? Yeah,
I think. I didn't care where I played, to be honest. I would be happy to play, you know what I mean. But I think that centre midfield for me, when I first come in, was where I wanted to play. I wanted to get on the ball, and I was quite fit at the time. Not that I am now, but I was quite fit at the time, so I could get up and down the pitch. And I really enjoyed that time, actually, with Baz in midfield and Sherbs in midfield. It was a good midfield to be part of, and obviously we had some good times as well, and some good results. Obviously, one that stood out was the TNS result that we played and won 5-1 against them, but which was brilliant. But then I remember the week after, we lost to Welshpool 3-2, which I think that was the trouble with us at times. We were probably a little bit inconsistent, and if we just had a little bit more consistency against those sort of teams, we probably would have done a little bit better.
So that was all in 2007, wasn't it? In your first season, when you first came in, was there any other games that stand out in your memory, either good or bad?
I remember, I think when I first come in, playing against Port Talbot, just from a personal point of view, really. We went away, and they were always known for being a big, strong side, and the pitch was never great, and it was a really hot day, real bobbly pitch, and we went down there and won 3-0 and won really convincingly. And I always remember that game just because, as I was playing centre midfield at the time, and sort of towards the end of the game, and the ball was hoofed forward, and Andy Evans went up for a header and managed to get something on it, and it just sort of looped up in the air, and sort of I come onto it from about 20 yards and hit it on the volley, and it went in, and I think I've shocked myself, to be honest, how it went in. I think it's probably one of the best goals I've ever scored, but yeah, I always remember that. That's always one that sort of stood out for me in that first period.
So one question that always comes up, and one I always enjoy asking, is the legendary Aberystwyth time bus journeys. Now, living in Shrewsbury, did you have the opportunity to really get involved with them on a regular basis?
I didn't, to be honest, no, because obviously a lot of the time we'd go straight there. So a lot of the time I'd be with your dad, actually, and your dad would drive. So yeah, a bit gutted about that, actually, that I didn't experience that. But one thing that I will say is some of the nights out that we had. I mean, again, I think that was what was so good about that team, is that it was a really good team spirit on the pitch, but everyone was so together off it as well. And Baz obviously being the captain, and you had Freddie and Christian and other experienced lads that would organise sort of nights out and whatever. And just a really good squad to be involved in, and some really, really good lads.
So moving forward to the next season, then 2007, 2008, you mentioned the TNS game already there. Were you involved with the infamous Haverfordwest game, the 6-0?
I don't think I was. I remember it, but I was, believe it or not, probably coming back from injury at the time. I remember.
Did you pick up a couple of bad injuries around that time?
I had a knee injury, so I had a knee injury which I was out for a few weeks, and then, because it was the League Cup, wasn't it?
Yes.
And we ended up playing, I think, was it Llanelli in the semi-final, and I missed the first leg of that, playing for the reserves actually against Newtown, and then I was back for the second leg away. But I always remember that season as well, because I think we played Haverfordwest. I'm not sure if that was in the League Cup. And we got to half time. I think we might have been 2 or 3-0 up, and then the lights went off, and it got called off. So obviously we had to play again. But I'm not sure. I can't remember. How that worked with.
It happened a couple of times around that period. I remember the game against Carsus, maybe the year before, where the lights went off and then they came back on, and the game was the game played on till about midnight. Yeah, it seemed to happen quite regular around then.
Yeah, I remember that. As I said, the Haverfordwest one was one that I remember from the League Cup, but I don't think it was that. Maybe it wasn't that season. It might have been maybe the year before. I can't remember, to be honest.
But as you said, the League Cup journey that year, for the second year, the club got to the semi-finals and narrowly missed out on the League Cup final, losing the second leg. What are your memories of that night down at Stedman Heath when I think it was 1-0?
1-0, yeah. I think it was obviously a really disappointing night for us. I think that was the one thing, as I said, it stood out really for that team, was that, as I said, with the players that we had, we were disappointed really that we didn't get to a cup final of some sort, whether it was the League Cup, the Welsh Cup, or potentially get into Europe, because we had a really good side there. I do remember that night, because I remember obviously losing 1-0. I think I had a chance towards the end of the game where I went one-on-one with the keeper, but the defender just managed to get back in time and just took it off me as I was about to shoot. So that always stuck in my head as well. But yeah, apart from that, I don't remember too much about it. I think was the goal a volley, if I remember rightly.
It was quite early on, was it?
Yeah.
Was it Andy Legg?
Andy Legg, yeah. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, there's not. Yeah, it doesn't stick in my head too much. But as I say, I just remembered having that chance where I stuck up front for sort of the last 10 minutes or so, just to see if we could get a goal. And as I said, I was going through. But was never the quickest, and the defender just managed to get back.
And I'm going to move on to another game now. It almost seems as if we're talking about disappointing results here, but Bangor City in the Welsh Cup, in I think it was the 4th round, we lost on penalties. Do you have any recollections of that game in particular as well?
I do actually, yeah, just because that was the game where I did my knee.
Right, okay.
I think it was early on as well. So went up for a header and ended up doing my lateral ligaments. So yeah, I remember that. And obviously, as you said, went to penalties, and obviously we lost out on penalties, which was disappointing. But I think Bangor went on to win that, didn't they, that year? Yeah. So, and obviously they won quite a few of them in those years. So they were always a strong side, Bangor. Obviously really well structured, and players like Les Davis and people like that. So they were good strong
Sean
side.
Edwards was the left winger, wasn't he?
That's it, yeah.
Really good defence as well. Michael Johnston at the back.
Michael Johnson, yeah. I think they had, was it Walshy in midfield as well? Yes. Michael Walsh. Yeah. So they were a good side.
So here's a question for you: Would you have taken one of the penalties?
I'd like to think I would. Yeah. I think I only took one penalty. Actually, that was in a Welsh Cup penalty shootout for Airbus, right, which was lucky enough to be the winning penalty, which I scored. So I'd like to think I would have taken one. Yeah. You never know.
So at the end of the 2007-2008 season, you took the decision to move on from Aber and you moved to Newtown. So what was the reasons behind that move?
Yeah, it was sort of difficult one, that was, because obviously I really didn't want to leave. Really enjoyed everything about Aber, the club, the management, the players, the fans. Everything about it was a really good fit for me, and I really enjoyed it. But obviously, just at the time when I was playing for Aber, I was working in a factory and sort of could be quite flexible with my hours and stuff like that. And I then managed to get a job working at Shropshire Star, which meant that my hours couldn't be as flexible, and unfortunately would have probably meant that I wouldn't have been able to train or wouldn't have been able to get there as often as I would have liked. And I think obviously the big part of obviously what Aber was obviously team spirit and making sure that you worked as hard as you could in training and things like that. And I just couldn't, I didn't feel like I would have been able to offer that. So obviously made the decision to go, and it was, as I said, it was unfortunate. I don't think your dad was very happy at the time, but as I said, obviously I think that I needed to do it just because obviously I needed to be closer to home. So I ended up speaking to Darren Ryan, and obviously he was manager at Newtown at the time, and he was brilliant with me, and ended up going there. And again, similar club to Aberystwyth, to be honest, Paul, in terms of really well run, sort of a really nice fan base there, good club structure, good management at the time, and a great bunch of lads as well, which again, sort of when you're going in, you want to settle as quickly as you can. And like Aberystwyth, how they sort of made me feel sort of one of them straight away. It was exactly the same at Newtown, and they were brilliant. And as I said, I had some really good memories there.
Who was in the Newtown squad that you joined at that time?
So you had Glenn Tolley, that was in midfield, but he wasn't there very long actually. When I went in, he left due to work commitments actually as well. Craig Hutchinson, a midfield player. He was like a little Barry, to be honest, in terms of how they both played. He
was at Connor's for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Jellers, Clarkey, Tomo. I mean, there was Craig Williams, obviously. He's been about for forever, I think, hasn't he? But, again, just a really good bunch of lads. Adam Wharton, so really good bunch of lads. And I think we did all right as a side as well. We probably could have done a little bit better at times, and probably again we're a little bit inconsistent. But as I said, overall, I think with the budget that probably Daz had there, we did all right.
And was it 2 or 3 years that you were at Newtown at that point for?
Yeah, so I think it was about 2.5, 3 years. I think the first season I was playing midfield, and then the second, I think sort of 3/4 way through that season, I ended up breaking my ankle, which was really unfortunate. So that put me out for the rest of that season, and then the second year, had a meeting with Darren, and he said that he wanted to put me at centre half and wanted to play me there. So I ended up playing there then for the second season and doing pretty well. It ended up, I think, with Fans Player of the Year and Players Player, which was really nice to get. And then that summer again, Daz made me captain, which I was obviously really happy with, and sort of a real honour to be given that. But in the same summer, then Daz left. So he left, and Andy Cale came in. I remember actually having to organise one of the pre-season games. I had to run the team and whatever, because I think Daz left on the Thursday. The Wednesday I think it was. So I had to do one of the sessions on the Thursday night, and then organise the team for Andy coming in on the Saturday.
Wow. You were interim manager.
Pardon?
You were interim manager for a time.
Yeah, just for a day or so. Yeah. It was. Andy Cale, he came in, and his football knowledge was incredible. Really, knew it all, been there, done it. Obviously, worked with TNS for a number of years. I learned a lot off him in terms of my coaching as well. Actually, he was very good in terms of his preparation and stuff like that. But again, in football, opinions change, don't they? And things change. And again, sort of picked up a couple of niggly injuries in that season when Andy came in, and got myself back fit. And obviously, again, as I said, I was captain at the time, but wasn't captain because I wasn't playing, but I was captain if I did play. And sort of remember being back fit to play New Year's Day, and not being given the captain's armband on the day, which found a little bit strange, but didn't think anything of it. Well, I did think something of it, but didn't say anything at the time. I would have respected his decision, but just not to say anything was a little bit strange. So anyway, Craig Harrison sort of got in touch at Airbus, and obviously he'd heard a couple of things of what happened, and ended up moving on to Airbus. I think my first game actually for Airbus was away at Aberystwyth. The debut was away at Aberystwyth. Yeah.
I was going to mention earlier your first return to Park Avenue with Newtown. Did you get any special treatment from any of the Aber players that day? Warm welcome back.
Do you know what? I don't remember the away game. I remember more the home game, because I remember playing, obviously centre midfield for Newtown, and obviously got a bit of stick from a few of the boys and a few of the fans that were there. But I always remember that because we were going through a bit of a tough time for league results at the time, and we probably needed a win more than anything really. And obviously Venners was playing, Baz was playing, Sherbs was playing, and I was playing up against them obviously, and we ended up winning the game 2-0, which was obviously what we needed. And yeah, that stuck out. I don't remember, if I'm honest, I don't remember the away game. I'm sure I probably would have got a bit of stick from particularly Baz and whatever. I'm sure
fans
he's probably,
Knox corner.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I didn't. Yeah, so I don't remember too much about the away game, if I'm honest.
So tell us about the return with Airbus then.
So again, it was quite a. I think we ended up drawing the game 0-0 actually. But it was really weird because with that, obviously I was a Newtown player up until the Saturday, and then Airbus were playing Aberystwyth on the Tuesday. I think I ended up meeting Craig Harrison and Tomo for a chat on the Sunday night, signing the forms, and then, as I said, going to Aber on the Tuesday. So it was a bit of a sort of a quick turnaround for me, I guess. But again, sort of always enjoyed my time, whether it was playing for or against Aber, because as I said, it was a really good club, and sort of a real nice fan base down there as well. So it was always, and particularly the night games. The night games were always great, because you always tended to get maybe a bit more of a better atmosphere there, and sort of under the lights as well. Obviously, it was a Tuesday night, so yeah, it was. As I said, we drew 0-0, so it was a fair result.
And that was an Airbus side that, if I remember correctly, it was just as they were really starting to establish themselves within the league. I think by that point they'd been in the league about 5 or 6 years, and that was when they were just starting to climb the league table to become almost serious contenders at the top end of the table. So how did your time at Airbus go?
Yeah, again, really enjoyed it. Again, some really good lads there. Obviously, Craig, again, was great with me. Really good coach, and obviously his style of play was he wanted to get the ball down and play. And I think probably at times maybe got a bit frustrated, because obviously he played at a really high level. And obviously Gaz Owen was there as coach as well, and really top coach as well. And obviously they both played at a really good level, so at times they probably got a bit frustrated in terms of what they were expecting us to do and what we could do. But we had some good times there and some good results as well. Sort of towards, I think, Christmas time of that season, or the second season I was there, Craig obviously got offered the TNS job, which obviously showed how well he'd been doing at Airbus, really, and the style of play that he had at Airbus obviously suited what TNS wanted as well. So he ended up leaving, and Andy Priest and Andy Morrison coming in, which was a slightly different style, a bit more direct. But again, how they went about things in terms of their structure and the organisation, and was brilliant. And I think they turned it into another level, really, in terms of obviously some of the players they brought in, and getting rid of a few players. And we got to the Welsh Cup semi-final that year when they came in as well, and really disappointing defeat to Kevin Druids, and one that will stick with me, I think, for a long time, because just remember that feeling. Didn't play very well on the day, me or the team.
Would that have been in Europe as well?
I think that would have got us into Europe, because at the time, obviously TNS had got to the final, so we knew if we beat Kevin Druids, we'd be in Europe. Obviously Kevin Druids got into Europe that year, and said that I just remember that journey home, just driving back by myself, and just that feeling was just an awful feeling, of just so much disappointment, so much regret, I guess, in a way, because we just didn't get going at all. We were massive favourites for the game. Obviously Druids been in the league below as well, but they'd had some really good results. I think they'd beaten Prestatyn, they'd beaten Aber on the way to get into the semi-final, so we didn't underestimate them at all, and we did a lot of prep, and as I said, Andy and Jock were really big on making sure that preparation was key, and we did a lot of work around set pieces as we normally did, but we just for some reason just didn't get going at all. I think we were 2-0 down quite early on. Then we managed to get back into the game at 2-1, and but then conceded 2 really poor goals again towards the end when we were chasing the game, and yeah, just not a nice feeling at all. And as I said, one that will always stick with me, I guess, as one that just because you could have been playing in a Welsh Cup final, you know what I mean? I never got to do that, which obviously would have been a big achievement to play in that, and maybe the opportunity to play in Europe as well. But obviously I was lucky enough in the end to have that with Newtown towards the end of my career. But I think, yeah, it was just, as I said, one that always sticks with you, I guess.
And then at the end of that season, you made the decision to leave Airbus and you came back to Park Avenue. So
I did, yeah, made the return. Been around, I've been to the same clubs a couple of times, haven't I? But no, again, I think obviously Tommy and Ian Hughes brought me in, and they sort of developed a really good squad there towards the end. Obviously Venners came in, it's Stuart Jones, Wyn Thomas, Matty Collins. So some really experienced lads that had been there and done it. I think we probably all say that we really underachieved that season, really, in terms of where we finished. I think we were towards the bottom of the league for a lot of the season. We had a couple of really bad results as well, particularly early on. Always one that sticks out was playing live on TV against Bangor away. I remember it was a time where they were just starting to come in with the live games, and they were starting to become more and more. And so you're telling your mates, or watch S4C or watch Scorio, you're going to be on telly, and yeah, it was a real poor game, and I said ended up losing 7-1. So not the best of starts playing live on telly, but it was funny how football changes, isn't it? Because I remember playing them on the Tuesday night, literally the following Tuesday, and we drew 0-0 with them. So it's just strange how things happen like that, isn't it?
Was Sean Thornton in the team when you came back?
Sean was in, yeah. He was there.
He was.
Yeah, he was very, very good, Sean. Obviously, again, very experienced, been around, and played at Shrewsbury, played at Sunderland, played at some good clubs. He got injured actually, so he was out for a lot of that season, which obviously we missed. But having said that, obviously we had Venners that came in, I think the January time of that year, and
not a bad replacement. Not
a bad replacement, no, exactly. So he obviously fitted in, but we were struggling as a side, really. We never, as I said, the whole season we never really got going. But obviously the following year they did really well, probably because I left.
Hey, you never know. They could have done even better if you'd stayed, mate. Look at it that way. Again, you're on the move at the end of that season as well, and yeah. This time to a new club. This time to Kevin Druids, and you ended up winning the Cymru Alliance.
Yeah. So again, I think it sort of got to the end of that season with Aber, and when I left, I was debating really what to do in terms of whether to carry on playing or to go more into the coaching, which I really enjoyed, and sort of had quite a few phone calls from Hugh Griffiths, and he was really sort of keen for me to go along to a couple of training sessions and just see what they were all about. And I kept sort of putting it off to start off with, and just saying to him, I'm not sure, let me have a think about it. But ended up sort of saying yes, I'll come along to a couple of training sessions. And from the first session, to be honest, I just loved it. The sessions that Hugh put on, the lads down there, they were a great bunch of lads. And again, sort of talking about, I've been really lucky, really, in terms of a lot of the teams that I've been involved with. A lot of the lads and the team spirit have been really, really good. I haven't been involved with too many where it's been divided, which I've been lucky with. And that Kevin Druid side, there was no divides whatsoever. It was just a really good, honest bunch of lads that wanted to win and wanted to work hard doing it. And it said Hugh built up a good side there. And we went unbeaten. No, sorry, we lost one game in that season. We nearly went unbeaten. We lost to Jesus at home, I think 2-1. But every other game, as I said, we were winning or drawing, and ended up winning the league by quite a bit in the end. And we felt like we were going to have a really good run again in the Welsh Cup. But then we played Bala at home, and to be fair, they battered us on the night. They had a really strong side, and yeah, we got done over by them. But yeah, again, really really enjoyed my football there, and that was probably, in a way, the fittest I've been for a long time. Some of the sessions that Hugh used to do, some of the running sessions, I don't think I've ever been so fit, but it was great. And I was lucky that season because I hardly picked up any injuries. I think I maybe had a little niggle at the start of the year, and that was it. I played most games and really enjoyed my football.
Brilliant. And at the end of that season, was it at the end of that season that you moved on to Newtown again?
No, so obviously Hugh left at the end of that season, so he ended up going to Bala. So the team was really sort of broken up. There was only sort of 2 or 3 lads that stayed. I was lucky enough to be one of them that ended up staying and being able to go back into the Welsh Premier. So it was really unfortunate actually, because I felt that if that team had stayed together, we might have done all right in the Welsh Prem, and obviously Hugh left, and he had his reasons for doing that.
Who was in that Druids team at that point then?
So we had Scott Quigley up top. He was obviously on loan from TNS at the time, but I mean, you could see even then that he was going to be a top lad and top player in terms of how strong he was. You knew if he went through one-on-one that he was going to score. He was really a match winner for us that season. Nick Ward, he came. Gaz Edwards, that's at Carnarvon now as captain, obviously doing really well. He was in that team. There was a number of lads that, as I said, we just had a really good side, and a real, as I said, a real honest bunch that you knew that you could just rely on. Rob James as well at centre half, obviously had a number of games in the Welsh Prem. So yeah, just a good honest bunch, and I felt that with a couple of signings we probably would have done all right. But as I said, that season it was completely broken up, and sort of got to around Christmas time of that season, and I was coaching with Callum McKenzie at the time, and he was saying that needed a centre half, and would I be interested, and they needed some cover, and I said yes, I would, and so yeah, so I went from there. But I think Chris and Cal probably wondered what they'd signed when I signed for Newtown, to be honest, because again, I think I played a couple of games. The first game was at Bala, and then I think maybe played one other, and then ended up picking up a hamstring injury. And it was at a time really where I'd just been promoted at work, and I was coaching a lot as well. Probably, if I'm honest, I wasn't doing the right things to get fit as well, because you use it as an excuse, I guess, but I just didn't find that I had the time to be able to do it because I was so busy with work. Then I was going off, sort of finishing work, going straight to coaching or straight to training, and it was really difficult to try and manage, I guess. And as I said, when you're not doing the right things, that's when you start to pick up the injuries, and obviously that's what happened to me. And I think, yeah, Chris, as I said, probably wondered what he'd signed really, because I only played maybe 3 or 4 games that season. But as a team, again, really good bunch of lads, and did really well that season. We got to the Welsh Cup final. Obviously, we lost that to TNS, but then got to the playoff final and ended up beating Haber in the playoff final to get into Europe, which was.
Talk to us about that day then. How was that coming back to Park Avenue as a former Aber player, playing in a playoff final at Park Avenue against your former club? And
again, I didn't play because I was still injured, but I was there watching, and again, just a real top. I mean, it was a really good atmosphere actually, because obviously there's quite a few fans there, because obviously we're vying for that European place, and obviously Newtown hadn't been in Europe for a long time as well, so it was massive for us to get into Europe, and that was a really good strong squad again, with really lucky in terms of the team spirit there, the management team, sort of the players, really good time, and obviously from that we ended up playing against Valletta, which I was lucky enough to be a part of, and obviously beating them over 2 legs, which was a huge achievement for the club and for the Welsh Prem as well, which then took us to Copenhagen, which was just on a different level in terms of you really, the way you got treated. You've really felt like a pro footballer for a couple of weeks, just in terms of how you went about stuff, and it was really, as I said, really great experience and a really good time for the club, and as I said, for the Welsh Prem as well.
So after those 2 European games, did you get a couple of good nights out in the cities that you went to? Copenhagen.
Better not go into too much detail, but we had one in Valletta, which will probably go down in the record books of being a decent night out. But
was it Malta? Valletta.
Pardon?
Is it Malta?
Malta, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously that experience of winning the game, and obviously we're on the bus on the way back, and everyone's just buzzing, and we ended up going out, and yeah, there's probably a few stories from that night, but I won't go into too much detail. But yeah, as I said, the whole sort of that month of being in Valletta and playing them over 2 legs, and then that experience of playing in Copenhagen, and I think that the one thing that always sticks with me with Copenhagen, I was lucky enough to get on in that game, and we lost the game 2-0, which I think was a massive achievement in itself, because they'd beaten Man United 2 or 3 seasons before that at their place, so 1-0. So just a huge achievement. I always remember sort of as we were walking off the pitch, there was probably about 14,000 fans there, but there was a number of fans that had stayed behind the goal, and they all sort of give us a standing ovation as we walked off the pitch, which again, sort of those sort of memories live with you, don't they? And it was just a really good time for the club.
Yeah, and that was a Newtown side that had sort of grown together as well, wasn't it? If I remember correctly. And there's a lot of players who are still at the club now.
Yeah, I think that obviously with that, and the same with Aberystwyth, really, they built the side around local lads, which I think is key, because they care about the team, they care about the sort of the community within that as well, and they want certain standards that you've got to have, and well, they set certain standards, and obviously as a player going in, you've got to make sure that you match those standards, and that was one thing that obviously Aberystwyth had, particularly when I was there in that first spell, local lads, and same in Newtown, they've got a key base of local lads, which are all sort of set those standards for the lads coming in, which was key.
And after a couple more seasons with Newtown, you took the decision to retire from the game, and I believe that was down to injuries in the end, was it?
Yeah, it was probably a long time coming, to be honest, in the end, but it was one of them that, as I said, I just kept picking up niggly injuries and wasn't doing myself justice. And I felt like I wasn't being right for the team as well, and massive on making sure that you've got to do what's right to carry on, and I wasn't doing that. As I said, I wasn't doing those extra bits that I should have been doing. I said I was really busy as I've been promoted with work and doing the other coaching stuff and whatever as well. I just felt that it wasn't right me carrying on, and I didn't want to be the sort of lad that was just, because Chris had asked me to carry on for another season. I didn't want to be the sort of lad that was just sort of coming in knowing that I wasn't really going to play, just being a squad player, and knowing that I wasn't doing myself justice or doing what I should have been doing. So I sort of, as I said, I was honest with Chris in sort of saying that I'm gonna pack the playing in, and just concentrate on the coaching, because it's something that I really enjoyed. I've been working with Shrewsbury Academy for a good number of years by then. Sort of started when I was 19 with the Shrewsbury Academy, so really enjoyed that, and it was something that I preferred to do. So
that was while you were a pro at Shrewsbury. You went into the coaching that early.
So yeah, so I was actually a YT. Maybe I was 18. I was actually a YT when I went in as coaching, doing sort of the under-15s with Kevin Seabury, which was a really sort of good experience, and obviously coaching with someone that had been there and done that as well was really good. And so yeah, so obviously I had a sort of honest chat with Chris, and he respected my decision. And anyway, I think that I was coaching with Callum McKenzie, as I said, and he, I think he had a chat with Chris, and he sort of said they'd be interested in getting me in as a coach to help them out, really. So sort of jumped at the chance for that, because it was something that I felt was my next development, really. I've obviously worked a long time with the kids, and again, just watching the development in terms of some of the players that you'd worked with over that time, and just having that small influence in terms of some of the players that you've coached, and seeing how well they're doing now, and even lads that aren't doing so well, but you see sort of what they're doing. It's great, really, to see all that, and I really enjoyed it. And as I said, I just felt that working with the first team was my next development, really, and learned so much from Chris and from Cal, really, in terms of everything that you don't realise, all the stuff that actually that goes on behind the scenes. From the management team, and how much effort that every single one of them puts in. I think that sort of making that step from being a player to moving over to the coaching staff, you certainly sort of you see another side, which as I said, I really enjoyed as well.
Have you done all your badges as well?
So that's one thing that I mean, I've done my B, I've done my youth modules. With my UEFA A, I've never done, which sort of, obviously I've still got plenty of time to do that. But I should have done that probably 2 or 3 years ago, if I'm honest. But again, I suppose sort of time gets. I hate to use time as an excuse, but I suppose it just gets away from you a little bit, because you're so busy with other things, whether it's, as I said, with playing or with the other coaching, and again, if I'm going to do something, I want to make sure that I'm doing it properly. And sometimes you look at, obviously, the commitment that you need to be able to do that, and it's a big commitment, and maybe not felt that I could put the time and effort in, but I've got to do it at some stage, because it's something that I really enjoy doing. And again, it's again something that.
That's how you see your future in football going, very much getting back into the coaching side, and would management be an option at some point as well?
I mean, you never know, do you? I mean, as I said, I've learned an awful lot from coaches and from managers that I've worked with all over the years, really. And I always try and take little bits from everyone I've worked with and try and put that into my own style. So I mean, I'd really like to think that at some point I would, but you just, obviously over here, it's maybe a different sort of opportunity at the moment. There's not so much opportunity to get involved maybe with that standard that I was obviously with the Welsh Premier, and I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see, but it's just sort of play it by ear, I guess.
And just to finish off on the coaching, Gav, I hope you don't mind, but this is the Shrewsbury Town fan in me coming out again. Which players that you worked with when you were coaching with the Shrewsbury Town Academy, which players really stood out and went on to have successful careers in the first team?
I think one that probably stood out for me was Conor Goldson.
Wow.
just because I was coaching at the county, the under 15s county side, and he wasn't with a club at the time, and I remember coaching him with a coach called Steve Wilderspin, and so we both sort of said that I think he'd been on Nigel Vaughan's radar, and I think he might have been at the game actually, but yeah, I remember coaching him and thinking he was a really sort of top player, or he was going to be a top player. And I remember Nige getting him in, and obviously he ended up signing a scholar, and then going on from there. I think the other one really that sticks out, that obviously has done really, really well as well, is Andre Gray.
Yes.
Coached him as an under 15. I was only 18, I think, at the time, but he obviously took the different route in terms of he got the pro at Shrewsbury, but I think he only had a year or so, and then he left and had to sort of work his way back up.
I don't think he ever really got the opportunity.
No, he didn't. No, but again, you could see. I mean, he had all the attributes to be a really good player. He was quick, he could score goals, he was strong, and you could see that he had something. But obviously, he had to take the different route in terms of go down the lower leagues and work his way back up. And always sort of taking note in terms of what he's been doing, because it's nice to look at what players you've coached and see how they've developed and what they've done. And as I said, even some lads that maybe made it as pros, but have gone down a different route. It's just nice to see how they've developed, really.
Would there have been a few from that Shrewsbury team that went into the Welsh Premier as well?
There's a lot that I've coached, actually. George Hughes, obviously, it's at Newtown. Callum Roberts, he's just gone back to Newtown. Yeah, there's a number of lads that I've coached that ended up doing pretty well. But as I said, it's just nice to have that small amount of influence, really, you know what I mean? And just nice to see that, as I said, you've been part of their development, really, because that's what I really enjoy. I think it's great, sort of passing on maybe the experience that I gained from working as a School of Excellence player to being a scholar, to being being lucky enough to get a pro. All those experiences, you can sort of try and pass on some bits of your knowledge to the younger lads, and no, it's good.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's a really good point to end it there, Gav. So listen, thanks very much for giving up your time tonight. Really enjoyed talking to you. I think we've gone on for well over an hour here.
I apologise for that. Sorry.
That's all, mate. It's all really good content, and I'm going to really enjoy watching and listening to you. What we always do to finish up is some quick fire questions, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah.
So, who was the best player that you played with at Aberystwyth Town?
It's a difficult one, that is. Obviously, I played with a number of good players, and probably a few that have obviously probably been legends for the club as well. I'd probably say the one that sticks out is Luke Shawbourne.
Yeah, good choice. Okay, second question: who was the worst trainer at the club?
Oh God, it's a difficult one, because, as I said, that it was such high intensity in terms of the training and the competitiveness. I think probably one that stands out, and he won't thank me for saying this, but I remember Sean James getting the yellow jersey quite a bit, so I'll say Sean.
I think that's Sean's first nomination, actually. So,
is it?
Yeah, maybe about time that he had one. What's your best memory from your time at Aber?
I think obviously two stick out. I think the 5-1 against TNS was one that definitely stands out, and obviously it was a big result for us. And obviously that TNS were a full-time team; they were a really good side. So I think that that one sticks out for me. And probably it was only a pre-season game, but just the Everton pre-season as well. Obviously, I think there was probably 1,500 to 2,000 fans that turned up for it, and just that experience playing against obviously a Premier League side. Well, I know obviously it was a younger age side, but they've still had some good playing. Rodwell was in that side that obviously went on to do.
Yeah, I think there's a picture of him, isn't there? From
that's it.
Have you got a worst memory from your time at Aber?
Again, just I think that it was in my second spell. The Bangor game away, 7-1. I know we spoke about it earlier, but just sort of telling a few people that I was live on telly, and then playing that, being really excited to play in that game, and then yeah, as I said, losing 7-1 was not good.
And sum up your time in Aber in 3 words.
I'd say loved every minute.
Brilliant. Have you got an all-time Aber 5-a-side team from players that you played with? And it can be across both spells.
Okay. So in goal, I'd probably say Mike Lewis. He had a bit of a tough time actually when when we first started playing. I think he got dropped quite early on, but when he came back in sort of around Christmas time, he did really well, and obviously gone on to do really well with Barry as well, and played in Europe and whatever. So I'd probably say Mike as the keeper. I think Christian Edwards as the centre half, just because, I mean, he was a leader on and off the pitch, really sort of led by example. Was a really good lad, but I learned a lot from him in terms of setting standards and making sure that you do things right. So and his reading of the game, obviously he was coming towards the end of his career, but how he read the game was obviously stood out. Barry Morgan, I think, as a centre midfield player, obviously I really enjoyed my time playing with Baz, and he was someone obviously that I think he was always renowned for his work rate and his tackling, but one thing that I think it was sort of went unnoticed a little bit was how he always did the simple things really well. And I think sometimes people didn't notice that. I think they just saw him as a tackler and someone that would run around, but he actually did the simple things really well and kept the team ticking at times where we needed just someone to get on the ball and keep things simple. And he, as I said, he did that really well. I think Luke Shawbourne, obviously, technically he could do anything really in terms of his ability. He was technically really, really good. Both feet, score goals. I think, if I'm honest, he was probably a little bit unlucky that maybe one that didn't go a little bit higher that maybe could have, if I'm honest. Obviously, you don't know the reasons for that, but I think he's definitely one that could have gone a little bit higher. And I think this might be a little bit controversial, but my forward would be probably Venner's. And he didn't actually play as a forward when I played with him at Aber in the second spell. He obviously played as a midfield player or as a 10, but obviously he's now doing that role at Bala and doing it very well, scoring goals. And again, I think he's another one that very, very unlucky not to have gone and played at a higher standard, to be honest. He's obviously going to go down as a Welsh Premier legend, and obviously he's still going now, which is brilliant, still scoring the goals. But I think that he'll obviously look back on his career and be very proud of what he's done. But I think how he's not got sort of picked up by someone else to go a little bit higher, I don't know.
Well, that's great, and that's everything. So, Gav, listen, thanks very much for giving up your time tonight. It's been great to catch up with you and talk through your career, and it's nice to mix in Shrewsbury and Aber and Newtown as well from a personal perspective. So, thanks very much for that. Do you still keep in touch with the goings on in the Welsh Premier? Do you still follow the results?
Yeah, I do. Sort of every week, to be honest. When it was on, always sort of looking to see how, particularly Aber and Newtown, obviously, always looking to see how both of them are doing and how they've done each week. Still speak to Callum Mackenzie quite a lot as well, just to get a bit of background info in terms of what's going on there as well. So now it's obviously I've made a lot of friends really particularly within those two clubs that like to see. Well, a lot of them are still playing, so it's nice to see how they're doing still, which obviously some of them are still doing very well.
And is there any chance maybe next season that you get the opportunity to come to an Aber against Newtown game, for example?
I'd love to. I was planning, obviously, we came back at Christmas, and I was planning on going to the Boxing Day game at Newtown. I'm not sure if. Well, I was obviously going back I was going back then to watch. Was it Aber versus Newtown boxing? Was it due to be Boxing Day?
It was going to be Aber against Newtown a few days before.
Well, yeah, maybe not Boxing Day. So I was going to go to watch that game, but obviously with lockdown and things like that, obviously didn't get the opportunity to do that. But I definitely love the opportunity to come back at some point and watch a game. Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, you're always welcome at Park Avenue, and it'll be great to see you if you get the opportunity to come back across, mate.
Cheers, Paul. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for your time, Gav. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Cheers, Paul. Cheers. Take care.